Now, and he interviewed this old boy named Joe Mooney or some shit like that. I don't know what his name is, and apparently he don't eat. But he came on and said some very salacious and blasphemous things about the Lord Jesus Christ, and said the talk and Jesus' gospels did not match up to one another. They preached two different gospels. That right down to tell you how crazy the man is. And he knows how crazy he is, too. He's taking the baths in ice water. From back in the late 1800s, they had these places called sanitariums. And guess what they did? They made those crazy folks take baths in ice water. And then they shocked the shit out of them. They put electrodes to them, and they'd and they shocked them, and that shocked them back to normalcy, I guess. I don't know. I think they're just trying to kill them, get rid of them, because there's problems with it. But that's neither here nor there. Maybe we need to bring that shock therapy. Maybe that'll help though, British. I feel bad for him there if he believes half that crazy shit he comes out of his mouth. He's lost in the sauce for real. And I'll tell you who else lost. There else lost in the sauce. That old boy with the big forehead that calls spirits, and he supposedly calls spirits in himself and they can see the future. And he's always on H Daily. What's that news, Nate?
I don't know what you're talking about, Colonel.
Yeah, you do. What we're talking about. And not triple O. It's not him. They say that they're double word. They got Wilcox. Yeah, that's all. But David Wilcox is his name. David Wilcox. He's another son of a bitch who got a belly full of lies. And he's not too bad, though. He's P.T. Barnum. He knows what he's doing. That's just gimmick. I ain't mad at him because he knows he's lying, and me do too. And sometimes it's kind of funny. He can say some pretty pertinent stuff. He had to get me on it, though, because they said that the sci-fi people were really worshiping the devil. He said he didn't really. I don't want to worship the devil. They said, well, you better get some yonder. And guess what? He got some yarn.
We know the air is unfit to breathe and our food is unfit to eat. We sit watching our TVs while some local newscaster tells us that today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy. It's like everything everywhere is going crazy, so we don't go out anymore. We sit in the house, and slowly the world we're living in is getting smaller, and all we say is, please, at least leave us alone in our living rooms. Let me have my toaster and my TV and my steel-belted radios, and I won't say anything. Just leave us alone. Well, I'm not going to leave you alone. I want you to get mad.
Welcome back to the BDRP Late Show. I'm your host, D-Doss, joined by Mr. Merlin, 187. And thank you for sticking with us for that test. All four of you. So, you folks, you know what's going on. Do you enjoy the platform that we're on, StreamYard? There's a lot of difficulties with it. It always seems to be a problem. It's kind of ridiculous. I really do think that if we had a different platform, we'd be able to do more things. I want Merlin and I to be able to do breakdowns for you. Live breakdowns, and those are always fun. We did 5 hours of unusable stuff, but just to add to the dynamic of the channel. And you folks are the ones who are going to lead that. I always listen to your opinions. So any suggestion as to what we should or you would like to see us do would be greatly appreciated. We have anybody in there? Damos Mars gave up on it.
Demas Mars, Mainline Mitch, and Steve Wolf.
Well, there you go, the usual suspects. What's up, Steve-O, Mainline, and Damos? Is it Demos or Damos?
Looks like it would be Demos. Or Demos, I guess.
What is that supposed to mean?
Who knows?
I thought you'd have, I figured you'd have that one. I believe it's some sort of a Greek deity, right? Like a Greek or Roman deity?
Well, I know Mars is the god of war of Rome.
Right. Aries, right?
Aries, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's Mars to the Greeks and Aries to the Romans.
What is Zeus to the Romans? Jupiter?
Yeah.
Let's see if I remember. Zeus is Jupiter. Did Poseidon have one? I mean, he was up there. Neptune.
Maybe
Neptune,
Neptune, but
is
Neptune wasn't discovered back then, supposedly.
then where'd they get Neptune from? Obviously,
The
all
god
those
of the
planets were
sea.
discovered. All those planets were discovered back then because there's all sorts of cultures show the planets. Some of them have
Yeah.
+1.
Yeah.
What is that +1? I wonder. Do you believe that there's a Nibiru or a Planet X?
Yes. I don't know that it's a planet. I know that, I'll put it this way. I've seen things to convince me that there are people in the government that call something the hammer of God.
What is that? I've
they
heard
talk
that applied
about
to
it like
different
it's a
things.
brown dwarf sun, that we're
Yes.
actually a dual star system.
Dual star system.
Yeah, binary star.
No, I think it is binary star. You're right. I think.
Yeah.
I don't know from that. I don't have enough of an understanding of it all, but I know that there's a bunch of different cultures was talking about there was, they showed this extra planet, and
Well, I
It-
mean,
it-
you
that's
know
what
the
doesn't
things
really
that
make
were
sense.
coming out, all the
yeah.
legends and everything, and even people from government sources talking about it around 2012, saying Planet X, Nibiru,
But
the
I
fist
figured
of
that was that
God, the
propaganda
hammer of
because it
God.
goes the hammer of God. I figured that was that propaganda because it goes into their Anunnaki, reinvention of history.
Well, Nibiru does, but there's
Nibiru is Planet
there's
X, right?
there's several ancient sources that allude to some type of celestial event. Let's put it that way, that caused a lot of trouble.
The I forget what native tribe it was, but they have the red and blue, the red and blue
Kachina.
Kachina. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
It's the Navajo, I believe.
I think you're right. And it's funny if you look at the Hindu, I guess, pantheon, like their three main deities, Vishnu, Brahma, and Shiva. I'm pretty sure it's Brahma that's red, and Brahma is the creator, and Shiva's blue, and that's the destroyer. So the blue star is going to come around and destroy, but when the red star comes back around, it's going to bring back life. So there has to be something to that.
Yeah.
And in the Book of Revelations, the stars are the angels. So
Yeah.
people don't. It's hard to grasp that an angel can be as big as a planet. You know what I mean? But when you look at,
I've seen some things that make me wonder about all that.
what do you mean?
There's people that's got videos on YouTube where they can go out in the yard and then take a green high intensity laser and just pick a star at random and shine that laser at it
Yes.
for a little while, and it starts moving.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to be that guy, but I have to be that guy when you talk about, good old the firmament. It's fixed in place in the firmament. It makes you think. And I thought people were kidding around, that this was some sort of one of those trends that people do, that they're luring other people into trying, but it's a bunch of nonsense. Like, obviously there wasn't a bunch of people doing that Tide Pod challenge where they're eating actual pods of laundry detergent. That's poisonous. It'll kill you. But then you have all
There's
these
enough.
cases afterwards. Yeah, you have all these cases afterwards where people actually do that stuff, and they're in the hospital. The Tide Pod challenge. But when
That ice bucket challenge, I mean, I was working security. I was head of security in a high rise. And these people were going out on the balcony and dumping buckets of ice water on themselves. And you got big old ice cubes and chunks of ice falling down 15 stories and hitting these little kids down there in the back in the
Ooh.
swimming pool, and it wasn't good.
No, it didn't sound like it. But there's a lot of people that the ALS challenge.
That's what I'm talking about, that ice
Yeah.
bucket challenge.
That had a spirit behind it, I think, though. Even though it was, for a good cause and whatnot, it was very, very weird.
Yeah.
Like I said, I may be wrong, but it had a spirit behind it. Like it spread like wildfire, and got some people hurt. This dude, you probably saw the video. He had a dump truck or a tractor with a scoop on it, and he had the scoop full of water. When the guy released the scoop, it dropped that arm down a little bit and it hit him right in the head. I'm surprised that guy lived through that. It looked like it broke his neck.
No kidding.
But going back to the stars in the firmament, I don't think that laser's reaching all the way out into a different galaxy to hit a star, and that star is going to start moving. You know what I'm saying? And
no,
the falling stars. Go ahead.
Thousands of light years away, it's going to take thousands of years for that laser to get there.
Exactly. So, but when it's just right up there in the sky, right above where planes fly, you know what I mean? That laser, the first time I saw it, I was like, no, this is a trick of light or something. They're doing something with the camera. But there's this dude who filmed it. You can tell it was filmed on some sort of it wasn't made to look like a phone, but it wasn't even night. I saw the night vision when that one's creepy because it looks like the other stars kind of move out of its way.
Yep.
But no, this one was filmed on somebody's phone, just a regular old Samsung or something.
I've seen that kind of stuff too.
And I mean, if it's special effects, they need to go. They need to go to Hollywood or something.
Yeah, the first one I saw was back in about 2010, 2011. How are they going to make that happen back then? There was nothing commercially available.
No, there was potatoes back then.
Yeah.
I remember I had one of those. I forget what kind it was, but it was one of the first that had a camera on it. I mean, everybody looked like a pixelated mess. You're definitely not taking pictures of the night sky without them just being completely black.
No.
But it talk about how the stars fell from heaven, and or the angel did cast a third of the stars from heaven to the ground, and it just makes you think. I saw this flying saucers, shooting star. I don't know what it was. It looked like a shooting star because it had the green flames around it, but it was very, very low. And Scrappy Doo was asleep in the back seat. I was going from Oklahoma back into Texas to go home, and it shot across the sky horizontally almost. I was like, Talisha, look at that shooting star. And as soon as I say that, it stops. I thought maybe the fire went out, but it sparks back up and it shoots straight down, and it shoots down behind this tree line. And lo and behold, it's 4 miles, probably less than that, less than 2 miles actually, away from guess where? Brown Springs. So it shoots behind this tree line. And I remember the immediate thought was, okay, I'm losing my mind. Something's going on with me. Because she was asleep in the back seat. I'm the only one that seen it. But the thing that saved me, there was a white Ford Ranger that you could see the glow off of vehicles from this thing. And he went off into a ditch looking at it. So I was like, all right, I hope he's all right, but that's good because I'm not out of my mind.
Not hallucinating.
No kidding.
I tell you what, back in right around New Year's Eve of the year 2000, I was over at my cousin's house, and he'd been drinking, and went outside, and there was literally, it looked like the sun came up.
Wow.
And this was seen on both sides of our state and the state above us. Tennessee, people reported seeing it, Georgia and Mississippi. And it came through Alabama. And it went across the sky, and it lit up just like daytime. And but there was no explosion or anything like that. And they never did find it.
How big was it?
According to them, I mean, according to the powers that be, that they never found the impact site. But my cousin freaked out and thought it was the end of the world and run in and hid in the closet.
What? Was it that big and that like?
Yes.
Would have to be if
It
you'd
looked
seen it
as
across
big
the
as
whole
the
state.
sun and as bright. It lit the
That's
whole sky.
madness.
It looks like it was like daytime outside. It was about 11:30, 12 o'clock at night.
It makes you wonder too. Like, I wonder how much of that is some sort of a flim flam that they're pulling. You know what I'm saying? Like doing those mass stereo jobs.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that stuff is. I mean, they're the wheels within a wheel, and you know what I'm saying. The angels.
I do too, but that one,
That's wild.
that was something else. But it didn't go east to west like the sun. It come north, well, kind of from the northwest to the southeast.
So it's going on a completely different route than it's supposed to.
Yeah, if it was the sun, it would be.
Was
a
it
completely
moving
different
slow
route.
like the sun?
No,
How fast?
no, it was going fast. It went from horizon to horizon in probably about, I'd say, 20 seconds.
Jeez. It's big enough to make it look like daytime outside. So that's a massive object.
Yeah.
That would have tripped me out too.
Yeah, how does something come across like that and you don't hear any impact? And they'd never find it, supposedly.
I guess the same way that metal ship crash landed in Las Vegas with no shattered glass, no sonic boom.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I don't know. It's ridiculous the stuff they try to convince us of. But
Well,
then
that
you
one did
have
make kind of a ripping sound.
like you could hear it cutting through the wind and stuff, or cutting through the air.
It made just a.
Kirk Stokes up there in Kentucky. I wish he hadn't took all his footage down. Let's check. Maybe it's still up there. He caught one of the craziest looking UFOs I've ever seen. It was going by the sun, and it looked like this thing was enormous, to say the least. And I mean, it was moving really, really slow, like it was a blimp or something. Those are the ones that kind of freaked me out.
Yeah.
Do you remember my buddy from Detroit that sent that? It was on the old channel. He sent that footage of a UFO, but it blacked out the night sky. And you could see it. It was as big as a skyscraper going over downtown Detroit.
I've seen that.
What do you
One
call
of the
that?
first ones I ever saw close up, I was backing out the driveway of the house my sister lives in next door. And I was bad about back then just backing all the way out to the road and backing out into the road and taking off the other way, right?
Right.
Well, I backed out the driveway, turned to the left and stopped, reached over to put the car in drive. And I looked up and it looked like a 747 was on fire and it was coming straight at me. I just thought, oh no. I reached over there and jerked it down into low and stomped it and drove back up in the driveway and jumped out of the car to run. And I looked up. It was like there was nothing there. And I was thinking, what in the world is this, And I kept looking and I realized like probably like 100 yards worth of sky was just completely blacked out, no stars. And there's like nothing. Wow. That's when I decided that I was not going to be the only person that saw this. And I run in the house and I got everybody out. My grandmother, my uncle, my aunt, and about 4 or 5 of my cousins. And I made them come outside and take a look. And it was still there, sitting there, floating silently. But by that time, there was a real dim light on either side of it, and like a small line that was kind of glowing a little bit in between it, just barely glowing. You'd have to wonder, is that really there or not? You know, the glowing was so dim,
Like in the middle of the craft itself?
like it was a ring around it,
Like,
but just you could only see one side. And there's a point of light on this end and this end. They were both dim, and then like a line going between them that was real dim. And it would probably have been about 2 or 3 stories tall and about 100 yards long. And it just kind of banged a little bit, started moving, and then went, and it was gone.
wow.
Never made a sound.
See, I never saw one of those giant ones like that, but yeah, bro, that's kind of creepy.
Yeah.
Because something that massive and it's just stationary in the sky, like
Making
that
no
has
sound.
to be putting you, that has to put your mind in some sort of immediate trauma. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because things
I
that
mean,
don't
you
make
could kind of
sense.
feel this little vibration, but there was no sound. It was weird.
You said you could feel the vibration coming off of it?
Yeah, just a little bit, but no sound.
Well, we
It was
know
like
that
it was making a low humming sound that was too low for the human ear to hear.
I've heard that before too. It's too low for the human ear, and I got something for you. So this is a little bit off topic, but I saw this last night, and it kind of tripped me out because a lot of these times we watch these videos, you know, and I know they're flim flams. But this one it stuck with me for some reason, and it gave me a weird feeling. I can get back to you. But yeah, like a lot of the experiences I've talked to talk about that low humming sound, and they talk about how it was pushing fear like into them too. You know what I mean? Like they didn't really feel afraid, but the closer it got to them or they got to it, they felt this fear, and it was irrational because they knew it was
Just kind of makes
too
you
big to
feel
even.
uneasy.
Well, yeah, I imagine so. And I'll try to see if Kirk Stokes has that video up too, because this thing, it was obviously some sort of metal, but the way it was floating around, bro, was just, I don't know, would have made me nervous. Plus, he's in the woods with all those werewolves and everything else in Daniel Boone.
Yeah.
I'm thoroughly convinced that Daniel Boone National Forest is some sort of a training ground for, or not a training ground per se, where they create these things in those dumbs, these cryptid creatures, using CRISPR-Cas9 or whatever they do. And I think that they turn them loose in there and observe them, and how they interact with maybe the natural creatures and the unnatural beasts of the earth.
I'm not going to say that there's not something like that, but I can tell you right now, I grew up the first part of my life up there right by the National Forest, the Daniel Boone National Forest and the Bankhead National Forest, kind of in between them. And then on the other side of me was the Sipsey Wilderness. And I can tell you, there's stories going back centuries of that stuff in those woods.
Yeah.
There's always.
What's your thoughts on the Darrow? Because there was something a lady wrote.
You know, that's
how she was taken down in the earth. Brenton Song was talking about it. She's taken down in the earth.
Yeah.
Through those caves, but they went a whole lot further through different caves, and you know what I thought.
It puts me in mind of Vishnu.
Vishnu?
Yeah.
Is that the elephant head?
Yep. That's what it makes me think of. I've heard of it.
Because they can transform.
It's a man-like thing with a, you know, like a trunk.
Like elephant trunk, but it wears clothes and has pale skin. They say that they say they're evil. or that they're
most of 'em are.
interdimensional. Yeah, they're interdimensional. I think most of them are too, especially stuff like that. Like just the way they show up and they're coming through portals. And I've never heard a story where they don't put somebody into some sort of a crippling fear. I don't want nothing to do with none of them.
No. You know, over in India,
Whether they be friendly or
they've
not.
got these things they call the duende. And they're weird little creatures.
Duende. It sounds familiar.
Yeah,
They look like little
it's over
gremlins.
in, from what I understand, they look like a human-colored Dobby from Harry Potter.
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. Well, that's a name, I guess.
Yeah, I would. All them little things creep me out. I don't
Yeah,
think
like
that,
for a
the
while.
Darrow is supposed to be very small, but I don't think they're as big as regular people either.
Yeah, they said they were like medium-sized men or something. But then I heard there was something called, well, it's the same thing, but they called them something else, a different type. And they were like 7 feet tall or something like that.
Wow.
They're probably them fallen angels. They can be whatever size they want to be.
There's the.
It ain't
But
pulling up
there
nothing.
just is.
But what's the little thing that's supposed to be like a miniature Squatch? They have them all over the United States, but up in the Northeast,
good
they're really
question.
popular. You know what I'm talking about? Like,
Yes, I do. I call them Ewoks.
yeah, that's pretty much what they look like, is little Ewoks. But they're like a miniature version of a Squatch, and they basically little people is what they describe them as. But there's one in particular, I believe it's 2 names, and it's in the like Massachusetts, New York type area. But those things, especially after going out there to old Ned's property, and then falling into this, they made me nervous. I don't want to see none of that stuff. I'd rather see something big than something small like that, believe it or not.
I'm more comfortable with the big ones because they were on the property with me the whole time I was growing up. But I'm not exactly
I thought really, really
comfortable with them.
hard. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, that's not saying that I want to go out there and play patty cake with none of them. But I thought real hard about that I'd run into or probably maybe come close to one of these things on the property out there in Arkansas, because it was right there on the river. And I think that was me and you looking at that. It is the Arkansas River. I was talking to one of my sisters about it, but they said they heard weird stuff, but it was always attributed to haints or catamounts, which I didn't know those were 2 names that they call these creatures out there. Never heard them called the Booger Man or anything like that.
Yeah, that's what a lot of the old people called them when I was growing up. Booger Man, Woolly Booger,
Old Slewfoot.
Old Slewfoot, yeah.
I heard one of my uncles talk about Old Slewfoot, but I just figured he was talking some Arkansas hillbilly madness.
I'll be honest with you, when I was a kid, I thought they was talking about the devil. When they said Old Slewfoot, I was thinking,
Devils was another name that they call them.
Yep.
Obviously, because you got devil this and devil that, and
Devil's Holler, Devil's Ridge.
Yep. How are older generations so comfortable knowing these things are out there? And I imagine some people like want to push them back, or you know what I'm saying, like get rid of them altogether.
They grew up with them.
Yeah, because I mean they grew up
They were
on that.
always
That's why I want to
there.
talk to my sisters, because just the casual
You
way
grew
that
up
they
on a
mentioned
farm?
seeing. Did I? No, I didn't grow up.
No, I say
my sisters
I'm saying
did.
when you grow up on a farm and you have cows and horses, especially if you've got a water source on your property. Yeah, you're gonna have frequent.
Well, you know, Arkansas has
interaction.
all those natural springs too and aquifers.
That's what I think was
And
one
I'm
of the
thoroughly,
things where I lived when I was growing up was we had an artesian spring on the back of the property.
yep, that's what I was just about to say. I think there's more going on with those springs than it just being a fresh water source too.
It's very possible.
I mean, because
And we had these strip
those,
pits about 600 yards across the woods from us. There were 2 huge strip pits.
See, all right.
Yeah, I ain't seen Kurt Stokes do
Good
anything in a
old
while.
Kirk Stokes. I haven't either. I mean, it's hell just finding this channel. You can see where he's added to his playlist, so he's still listening to music and yeah, he took even more down, I think, bro. That's crazy. He took all of his content down.
Yeah. It's been that way
Wow.
for a while, last time I looked.
That's insanity. I mean, I understand them to a degree.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's been doing it a whole lot longer, and he's caught hell. They had him in the back of a black van, and he had a piece of footage, and it was online, and nobody ever saw it. I was talking to him one day, is when I first started researching. I was like, hey, bro, I forget the name of it, but I was like, hey, listen, I think there was 2 men in suits following you. Because when you look behind you, you can see one, and they're ducked down, and you see one kind of stand up and then like kind of shoot back down, and they're far off, but you could tell it was men, 2 men, Caucasian or like complexion, and then they had on a black suit with a black necktie, and they were out there, bro. He was in the sticks. And they're out there in those suits. I don't know who or what them. I mean, maybe they were rank devils transforming themselves. Who knows?
Yeah.
Because if they were some sort of agents, I wouldn't have went out there with that man amongst all that junk.
No.
Well, it's a good thing some people have. Looks like some people still have their interviews and stuff up. And things that he.
On that Kurt Stokes 19, you can go into the playlists, and there's some of the cryptid content.
Yeah.
I think there's like 12 videos.
Is it his?
Look like.
Bigfoot cryptid documentaries, yeah. That's a bummer though, man. He had hands down. No, yeah, see, this is a bunch of random stuff that ain't even got nothing to do with him.
I didn't take a good look.
That was old Chief Dan.
Yep.
Well, it is what it is. I mean, he took all that footage and he caught hell for it too. He's been doing it for a very long time.
Yeah. I get it. Don't nobody need that kind of trouble.
No. And he was all about, exposing them to warn people like, hey, you're not being told what's going on straight up. And there's a reason why all these people are going missing in state national parks. And Kirk Stokes, and there's a few more. Scott Carpenter to a certain extent, definitely Tim Baker, Kirk Stokes.
I wish we could get him on an interview, but I know he don't want the hassle.
Who, Kurt?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was there for a minute, but I think he's pretty much, you know, hung up his spurs and his shooting irons.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. But it's unfortunate because, you know, him out of anybody, in my humble opinion, has produced more dogman evidence just throughout like one area. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that Squatch and Dogman are in the area that he was going to in Daniel Boone. Plus all sorts of other stuff. He had Goatman on there. Not Goatman, I'm sorry. The Jersey Devil.
They call him
something that looked just like the description of the Jersey Devil.
The reason
I
I'm
believe
wearing a
if he
hoodie
hadn't
is
shot
that
at the
my
way
AC's on.
I'm wearing my jacket because it's straight up cold. And I forgot to plug up that heater a second ago. It's like 40 something degrees.
It got up to about 76. I think it was 72 last
I wish it
time
got up to 76 here. Like 50 something, I think. Goodness gracious. Good to see the countenance of you two gentlemen. Oh, I appreciate that, Steve. Steve said we have a good countenance.
I'm glad you think so. I'm glad somebody thinks so.
Yeah, right. I know one gentleman who probably don't who wouldn't agree that I had a good husband. He'll be all right. UFO VNI channel has some serious solar and deep space telescopic footage. But Brother Steve, I don't know if I trust that deep space footage. I mean, they showed this one that looked like it was gassing up from the sun, like it was at a chevron. And then it just burns off.
Those Soho satellite images, man.
Some of those things in there are massive. They're massive. Yeah. As big as cities.
Bigger than the whole planet Earth. No, I mean some of those.
Yeah, I mean some of the stuff they show.
Earth
yeah, some of the stuff they shown on there. I stopped watching that when they showed the thing. There's one ship, and it was circular, and it was moving at a high rate. They said they thought it was a meteor, but they had some fairly clear images of it, and they were saying how it was a space station, or like a flying space station. I was like, man, beat it, creep. That ain't no space station.
Well, what would you call something that's bigger than a planet? Could you call it a ship?
Listen, I do not think that they're good. I think it's a flim flam. I think it's a flim flam.
Okay.
I don't trust them.
I
mean, it looked real. It looked legit, but I'm gonna choose the option of it being a flim flam and going about my life, not thinking that there's a whole. That thing was half the size of the moon. It was massive.
I'm gonna tell you something. The ones that you're seeing, when you're seeing the sun about this big and another one about this big, that's bigger than the Earth. It looks small because of you don't expect something to be as big as the sun is. When you look at a picture of what the size of the Earth is in comparison to the sun, some of them things that you're looking at are actually bigger than Saturn.
That's madness.
Yeah.
And they're moving around, and they're moving around with intelligence.
Yeah,
like they're being
and blurring, they're moving so fast, going vroom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know what? Talk about that space debris. Something that I bet would like just, unless you are going the speed of light, I don't see how it just doesn't get ripped to atoms. Are they trying to insinuate they're moving fast enough to where they can move through meteor fields and all that?
There's no way. That thing would have to be coming through some kind of portal. There's no way that you could go intergalactically faster than the speed of light. With
and not had any kind of impediment. Like, I don't believe that's possible.
I don't see how anybody ever believed that.
Because of Star Trek. But even Star Trek, they explained it away a couple of times, didn't they? Like, didn't they say that it's creating some sort of blah, blah, blah? And oh, wow, the chat went.
The only thing I ever heard was that they had shields. And apparently that protected them.
Yeah. The shields, and then something from the shields would push stuff out of the way as it was flying towards it. Yeah, beat it, creep.
Sure.
Not pushing nothing out of the way at the speed of light. That's called an explosion. Just the same way they justify the gravity thing. You know what I mean? Like they're walking around like they're at Kmart, you know, and they're in deep space. Oh, I flipped the switch right here. It said a bunch of 5-syllable words, and that means we can walk around normally.
Yeah.
Not trashing Star Trek. I'm a fan of Star Trek.
I like it too. I mean, it's interesting to watch, but the technology is.
But yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Hey,
some of
what's
the
his name?
technology, of course, is good because they had a little
Yeah.
flip phone.
The
and all
flip phone,
that,
the thing,
but,
the ear communicator.
Yeah. Like the little Bluetooth earbud.
Yep.
That's all
Old
great.
Uhura.
But, I can tell you right now, that warp speed mess flying through space at 9 times the speed of light that ain't happening.
Yeah.
That's not happening.
And at the if they're going at the speed of light, it's gonna mess something up.
Yeah.
It's making me think like, how are they expecting to get to Mars and everybody be alive? Are they gonna put them in a coma or something? Because that's a good long ways away. I
Well,
heard
they
some
say
figures
if you
last
get
night
it
that
at
the
the
moon
right
you
time
could put.
of year and time it right, you can make the trip in under 6 months.
I don't believe that. What are the thrusters going to be going? And it's just they're just going
The
to.
way that they're spinning, the way they say it, take off, go to the moon, and refuel. They was going to make rocket fuel on the moon from the water that they now admit is on the moon.
Yeah.
And take off from the moon when it's swinging toward Mars and Mars is moving toward it. So it makes it faster, you see. That's what they say.
That makes a whole lot more sense. So they're going to be launching from the moon.
That's what they say.
Well, I'll be doggone. God bless them.
That'd be like
I don't believe a word of that, honestly.
that would be like me and you. That would be like me and you being about 1.5 miles from each other, and both of us having a 30-06 and firing bullets and making them hit.
Towards
Except
each
more
other.
difficult.
Really, it would be more like if we were in a vehicle and we were doing that,
Yeah, there you go.
because it's
There you go.
moving.
That's more
You know
like
what I mean? Like, and we
or
somehow
better
have
yet, be on like a carnival ride where it's spinning.
yeah, spinning
the old
those
teacup.
the old UFO thing. They have the thing the
Yeah.
UFOs where you put laid back on it and it push you upwards. Is that like an
Yeah.
angle? So yeah, it'd be like trying to shoot someone on the Ferris wheel. But I mean, you know, Elon Musk says they can do it, so yeah, I wouldn't want to be the person
It's
signing
got to
up
be
for that.
true then.
Yeah, it's got to be true. If Elon
No,
Musk
I
says it.
would not be the person signing up for that. Unless I
That'd
had
be-
some kind of terminal disease and I wanted to, get, and they offered to take real good care of my family.
Hey, it's Fred the
'Cause,
Frog.
I would be under the
Fondly,
impression I was never coming back.
Yo, yeah, that they straight up said it's a one-way trip,
Hmm.
and that first the first group and the second group after that are going to be the ones to set up the what would you call it?
Sure they are.
The the habitations and whatnot, and then the second group
Yeah.
would build out the habitations and start the process of reforming or the atmosphere.
I was under the impression they were supposed to be sending these 3D printer things to print a habitation. And the people that was going.
That's what they said, but I think you still have to piece it together. You know what I mean? Like connect the dots type stuff. I
No,
guess.
I don't have to.
I
don't
wouldn't
have to
care
at
if
all.
they said that there was a mansion already built and in place with a swimming pool and Wi-Fi. I'm not going no more. I don't even want to go on the ocean.
Well,
Who
I mean,
believes? And I'm sorry, folks. I'm not ignoring y'all. Thank you for putting your question in all caps too, Belinda Kruger. If you folks do that, it'll make it a whole lot easier to grab my eye. I was just in here having a conversation with Brother Merle. Said, "Oh yeah, we're on a live stream. Let me interact with the audience that showed up." So we got it's
I'll
all
be
a
honest
hoax.
with you. I'm not. Yeah. I know
No,
we
go ahead,
didn't
go
with the
ahead, bro.
technology they said we were doing it with back then.
Oh, somebody asked a question
The
about going to the
moon
moon.
landing. Yeah.
No, that
We
was
believe
that
in
was
the
the
moon
biggest psyops ever put on mankind. The astronauts themselves have admitted, more or less, that they didn't go to the moon. And even that second mission to the moon, that astronaut flat out said that they didn't go. I've seen too much evidence that they're not even going to space, that they're in some sort of an underwater, well, the stuff where they're floating around, like at the space station when it was up, that's done in one of those, what do you call them, those high velocity things or whatever, where they, you know, they go up so far and then they take kind of a, the vomit comet.
Yeah, they call it the vomit comet. I've seen footage that supposedly from the ISS, and it's people wearing a harness with wires. You can see the wires hitting their hair.
You could see them move the wire out of the way. The thing that got me the most though is when they were repairing the space station and bubbles came up from where they were messing around. How's that going to happen in space? That you can't really trust anything created by a Nazi.
I worked in communications, and I put in communications at the Stennis Naval NASA Research Facility and other places. I know that we have satellites in space. I know that.
Oh,
because I've sighted them in. With the,
are we talking about the Mylar balloons?
Dishes. Well, I'm not talking about no Mylar balloon.
Well, that's the gimmick, they say, is the satellites are floating around on Mylar balloons.
Yeah, sure they are. Sure they are.
And I mean,
this madness.
Listen, I understand what people talk about the firmament. I believe it's biblical. I believe, though, well, I don't know. I know what they're telling us at NASA ain't the truth, but I think the firmament may be the Van Allen's radiation belt. Or the firmament as far as that keeps us contained.
Here. That's what contains us here.
Yeah.
Van Allen radiation belt. But we can go into low Earth orbit, but I don't think we've got that big old. I actually saw, I'm going to tell you this right now. I saw what they say was one of the modules that they put on the ISS. They had an extra long trailer on an 18-wheeler, or what would normally be an 18-wheeler, that was extra wide, and they had to have a special escort, and it had to be 2 lanes wide to get it there. And it was, I think it was something like, it's about the size of a 14 by 70 trailer. And they said that was being sent up there to hook onto that thing. I didn't see it sent up or anything. I didn't get to touch it, but I was at the Stennis Space Center when they brought it in.
And that kind of stuff's a lot just to run a gimmick. You know what I mean?
It could be.
I think we're going to space, but I think it's like you said, it's very low orbit. But this is Deimos Mars asked a great question. And remember to put your questions in all caps if you could. Do you believe in the dome? I've seen pretty videos of rockets seemingly hitting and curving off of something invisible in the sky. That's a great question because I've seen those videos too, and there's a lot of evidence that says, yeah, there is a dome. There's a lot that's there's an equal amount that says there's not, I would say, because I don't like, again, that you'd have to put way too much trust in NASA, and that's something I'm not willing to do. But before we jump into that, let's get the roster. Show appreciation to the folks who showed up. We got Mainline Mitch, Deimos Mars, Belinda Kruger, Steve Wolf. It's all a hoax. Rex Goodrum. I ain't seen you in a while, Rex. What's up, buddy? Fred the Frog. I was just all going hard in the paint in there. Virgil Lente.
I've seen a UFO, and I've seen it take off, and it didn't seem to have no trouble going all the way out. It didn't bounce off of nothing.
I know what he's talking about, though. Like, you can see where the impact and everything with, like, I mean, Operation Fishbowl. where us, in the midst of the Cold War, were shooting rockets straight up. And you got Hillary Clinton always talking about the glass ceiling and busting through the glass ceiling, and in a real esoteric type of way. Eve, A-E-R, ever. I've never seen you before. Welcome to BDRP. I almost said Bigfoot Dogman Research Project again. We got to have a throwback week.
Yeah.
And if I missed anybody, I'm sincerely sorry. Oh, Miss Katie Seal jumped in there. So, yeah, I mean, maybe the interdimensional entities can pass through the dome if there is one up there. I mean, but if there is one, the Bible indicates that the stars are coming here from the firmament. I mean, I don't know. I never heard any of this stuff until like the early 2000s.
I'm going to be honest with you. This is my opinion. I looked into it at length. There was a Flat Earth Society in the late 1800s. It went away. There was nothing else heard about it until I think it was like 2000, right around 2010, something like that. And then this Fugazi website comes up and starts putting out all this stuff and getting all this going on. And then people went to try to find the people that put up the website, and the people that was supposedly doing it don't exist. I know this. There were people putting together missions to try to go to the South Pole and the North Pole to find the hole into what they call the hollow earth. That's biblical. That's what I believe is going on. I also believe that it was getting too much attention. There were people actually raising money for an expedition on Coast to Coast AM, and they got up to over, I think, like something like $600,000 or $800,000. And then all of a sudden, you're hearing about this flat Earth stuff.
$700,000 to go to go to the center of the earth.
Yeah.
Good night. That's a lot of money.
They were gonna lease an icebreaker and all kind of stuff and all this equipment, and scientific equipment.
Crowdfunded?
Yeah. And when that started, suddenly it was a flat Earth with a firmament. If you tried to look down there, you'd fall into nothing.
There's something going on with Antarctica, though.
Of course there is.
It's the ice wall, man.
I don't believe it's no ice wall where you can
it's
find,
the ice wall.
You know, land going on forever. There's a hole going down. That's what they're
and I mean, yeah. And that goes into what Admiral Byrd said. He said he went, further than anybody did in his plane, and something took over his controls and drug him down into that hole. And he said it was like something was going on with the gravity, but it was like he could feel it. But it wasn't that much where it was going to, he felt like it was going to harm him.
Yeah. Now, do I believe that the Earth is a perfect sphere? No. There's flat spots on it. Some places it's kind of ovoid, different shape. I don't believe much of anything they tell us, but I do know we have satellites in space because I did communications work. I don't have to wonder. And I know point-to-point lasers, when you're working on cell towers, only can be used a couple of miles. A cell tower only goes out 2.5 miles, and then you've got to have another tower.
That goes all the way back, bro, to them pointing them lasers at those stars and them floating around and stuff. Somebody said something about it earlier. I just want to point this out. I seriously dig you, brother Mitch. Mitch the Sitch is the man. But it goes back at the beginning of the show where we were talking about the laser pointers and hitting those stars. I don't know who it was in the chat, but somebody said, is it possible that that it's some sort of a portal you pass through? if you're going in an interdimensional space. Because I have seen a lot of videos. Well, not a lot. I've seen a few where back in the 50s, I believe, is when Operation Fishbowl. Somebody can correct me on that. And it may be Operation Thor's Hammer, or Hammer or Thor, whatever it was. But it was whenever they were, us in Russia were shooting rockets straight up into the sky. It hit the dome, or it hit something. Or it could have been, I mean, I don't know. Could have been environmental things that did it, but it looked like it hit something solid. And you could see the fire going. It even looked like it singed it.
There's footage of rockets being test fired and UFOs coming up to them, hitting them with an energy beam and blowing them up.
Yeah. There's footage of them shutting down nuclear missile sites.
They
show the UFO floating over it?
supposedly shot a nuclear missile at the moon. And I believe
supposedly his ass. Yeah, it was under the Obama administration.
Well, how are they going to do with that if there's a dome? You don't get to have it both ways.
Because the moon is within the firmament.
Sure it is.
Well, if the firmament's the Van Allen's radiation belt.
No, the Van Allen radiation belt's between here and the moon.
Yeah, that's true. They said when they shot that rocket at it, it sounded like a bell. That and the Obama administration, or under the Obama administration, they shot down the Black Knight satellite too, allegedly.
Yeah, sure they did.
See, it's so hard to believe anything. Like, it's like we did that one show that night. It's all a lie. Every last mad jack bit of it. Because I don't believe they're going to give some truth.
The only thing that I can go by is there's tables so that you'll know when satellites are transiting. And you have to sight in on them with satellite dishes. I've done that. I know that's real.
They're on Mylar balloons, though, bro.
Mylar balloons don't go that fast. They don't go 20,000 miles an hour. Sorry.
They're a special type of Mylar balloon, you see.
Sure they are. Sure they are.
They're created by engineers
There's also radio wave propagation, and you have to use those formulas. You can tell how long radio signal takes to get from here to Australia. You have to bounce it off the ionosphere. I mean, there's too many things. There's too many things that proves that the Earth is an ovoid shape of some sort.
Yeah. Because it talks about the I don't know. I mean, I see where people come from, but like, again, there was the truth community, if you want to call it that, before the flat earth stuff came around. And it was men and women digging for sincere truth. Not saying that that's something that, I mean, to me, honestly, I thought it was something to split the brethren, because that's what I saw that was happening more than anything, is that brothers and sisters in the faith of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ were being split asunder by this. And they were using the Bible to justify, like, for those who would believe a lie. Well, this is a lie. This is a pretty big lie. I don't want to believe it and lose my salvation. And that's when I kind of took a step back and was like, wait a minute, I see what this is.
That's exactly what it is. It's a psychological operation to pit people against each other, but it's also to get everybody's eyes off of the fact that the earth's hollow, just like it says in the Bible. That there's stuff down there. And people were trying to get expeditions together to go prove it. I'm going to tell you a little secret.
There's
a lot
a president.
Of people don't know. The original charter of the Smithsonian Institute was to prove the hollow earth theory. That was what the original charter
I was just about to say, the president that, I can't remember his name, but the president who put together the expedition for it was the one that started the Smithsonian, if I'm not mistaken. You know what I'm talking about?
There was a lot of people in on the starting of the Smithsonian. Then Admiral Byrd makes his little trip, and all of a sudden, it's a federal agency. It ain't a private thing no more. It's a federal agency. And they're telling museums what they can and can't display. Taking
Yeah,
over everything.
exactly. And taking bones of strange things and beings and sinking them into the Marianas Trench. I was reading something the other day, and it's startling to sit and think about it. But the Native Americans, and I do believe this, the Native Americans that were here before the colonizers were absolutely, industrialists, so to speak. They had a civilization of sorts. They had whole functional cities. I don't know where the ideas, and you can't hide all the history of that. You just can't do it. But there's an idea that's prevalent that, I mean, they were a bunch of savages running around eating each other.
It's crazy.
Yeah, but I mean, if you listen to a lot of Reddit,
evidence
that's what
all
it is.
over the place
Of that type of behavior going on everywhere.
There's evidence all over the earth that there was a civilization here in a large catastrophe and a worldwide flood. They found, there's this guy, I think his name's Michael Cremo. He does this what they call OO parts. It's out of place artifacts. I highly recommend
I know what you're talking about.
everybody look this up. They found a spark plug inside of a stone.
Yes. Yes.
It's thousands of years old.
That was madness. That spark plug was a modern spark plug.
Yeah. It was a spark
I thought they
plug.
carbon dated it
You
back to
couldn't
millions of
mistake
years.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I don't trust the carbon dating process because there's been too many
Yeah, it's
not
bogus.
anomalies, but yeah, it is. They can test the same piece of, let's say, bone through the carbon dating system, and it'll date back 10 million years one time, then 100 million the next. Well, that's a pretty
They
big,
tested
margin
a
of error.
living. They tested a piece of shell off of a living snail, and it said it was 60-something million years old.
And that's what everybody's going on. And bro, I know you've heard this just as much, if not more than I have. But when somebody can't explain things like that, or they can't explain how some of the things over there in Egypt, like the pyramids, have literal circular drill marks, and the drills are more
drill marks.
Yes, high speed. Something made it more powerful material than we have now.
We couldn't make that stuff with some of our CNC machines now.
Exactly.
We could.
Exactly. And I mean, we got some amazing stuff now. Are you kidding me? But we still can't do that. Or better yet, these tunnels over there, some are in Africa, some are here, that when you look at them, it looks like they were carved out perfectly with a machine. They're, I mean, completely symmetrical all the way through them. And a lot of, I want to say Zales. It's one of these diamond companies. They attach their diamond mines. The owner, let's just say it was Zales.
De Beers, they're the diamond
Beers,
company.
De
Zales
Beers,
is a
De
jewelry
Beers.
store.
Zales, I'm not a big jewelry man, so my mistake. But yeah, De Beers. He said that when they were talking about his massive, success and whatnot, and how he built all these mines, he was like, I just attached my mines to what was already there. And I believe him. I truly do. And there's evidence of that being fact, because you can see the old school pickaxe way that he opened up these mines. And then you see this just perfect, circular or semicircular
Looks almost
cave.
like cement tunnel, but it's rock.
Yes. Yeah,
Vitrified
exactly.
rock.
And it's smooth. That's what's crazy about it.
Like
I'm guessing you've seen them too? Yes. That's weird, bro. And I forget what they said they dated back to, but they said that's an inaccurate figure. It could be older.
Whether they
It was
admit
in the
that
thousands.
there's basically a nuclear reactor that's, they say, millions of years old over in Africa that they found down in one of them tunnels and one of them mines.
I believe it. And my thoughts on it. I've said it before. I sincerely believe that the pre-flood world had the same and better technology that we have today, and they use more natural things to achieve that, like things that you can find in creation, nature.
Mm-hmm.
I think what we have now is just some sort of a weird type of polluted version of the stuff they had.
Yeah. That's exactly what it is.
So I don't think they were using the Earth's lifeblood. You know what I mean? I don't think they were using drilling for oil or anything like that.
I couldn't tell you. They may have. They was using spark plugs.
Well, yeah,
Know
that's
that.
true. I mean, and how could that be a gag that somebody pulled? How did they get it inside the rock if it was some big flim flam?
You can
know
tell
what I mean?
that wasn't no gag. It's still inside the rock. The reason they know it's there is they X-rayed it.
Yep.
They're steel balls.
Bro, when you put
chromium
Steel
steel balls and all kinds of artifacts down in South America that's thousands of years old. Little statues, and they got the little chromium steel balls in there. They find them all over the place down there. It's crazy.
Really makes you
We're
think,
talking
man.
about some of the highest tech steel known to man that we just recently learned how to make. Is what these balls are made out of.
And they still try to sell the fact that we didn't have the navigational capabilities to circumnavigate the globe via boat and whatnot. Like, I can't believe they ever tried to sell us that bill of goods. That is madness. Like,
Yeah.
How can you explain pyramids at the same geographical locations on the other side of the world, and they're pyramids, or the obelisks and the domes on everything? It's ridiculous.
Perfectly on the equator and dead center in the middle of all the continents and aligned perfectly to the real North Pole.
Yes, the actual, like, true north.
Yes.
But on top of that, you can break it back down to just, let's simplify, because that's too complicated. As a part of spiritual worship around the world, every single culture has drums, dancing, dancing around a fire, human sacrifice. Like, every single advanced and primitive culture has these three things to get spiritually amped up to go into their worship. Like, who started that? You know what I'm saying? Like, it seems like at some point in time, all the cultures or all the groups or types of mankind, races or whatever you want to call them, were under the same umbrella, because when they split, they still have these things that are not similar but identical to one another.
You can look at the figures that the Chinese use, the characters for their numbers. The number 8 is a figure of a boat with 8 people on it.
Yep. Oh, well, the oldest known pictograph is the retelling of Noah and the Ark.
That's what that is. Pictograph of Noah's Ark. You know what's going on, just like I know what's going on with that.
Yeah, but I mean, I tell you all the time, bro. I don't like people playing crazy with me, like playing dumb.
No kidding.
You know what I mean? It's highly offensive. Then they sell us a bill of goods from the time that we're youngins, all the way to when we're putting ourselves in debt to go through the universities.
Yeah.
To learn even more intricate lies. You know, like,
the lies different at every level.
Yep. And that's the secret
crazy thing is when you're in college, they admit that.
Yeah.
They'll tell you,
but
we taught you this way. We used this model to explain it to you, and that's kind of close enough, but it's really like this. And then when you go to the next level class up, they say, well, we used this model when you were down there to explain it to you roughly, but it's really more.
Yeah, now we can expand upon that knowledge that you have a base now that we can expand upon. It's like, no, that's completely different. A base, you know, something completely different than bro, I didn't know. And I mean, maybe
we're really telling you the truth this time.
Yeah, this time. We're not lying to you this time. bro, what gets it's a wicked thing. It really is.
Yeah.
But what really got me and made me start looking at academia in a completely different way, when I first went to college, I found out that Africans were the first explorers in South America. And of course, you know, you got the statues that have predominantly African features, you know what I mean, down there in South America. But at the time period that they put them having achieved this, well, in high school, I learned that they didn't have any navigational capabilities whatsoever at that point in time. And I remember pointing this out to the professor, and he just kind of chuckled. I forget what he said, but he kind of just shrugged it out like, I know they told you that, but that's, you know, you're in a different place now. We're going to give you different information.
I've seen the evidence to say that it was Africans. I've also seen evidence that it was the Egyptians. And I've also seen evidence
they had cocaine
that
in Egypt.
Yep. That it was actually the Phoenicians.
Well, guess what? I think it was all of them. And I think they were all under.
Sure of it.
You know what I mean? I think they were all under the umbrella of something else. You know, when they were all together as a different group, maybe the Phoenicians, you know? When you start looking into these different types of people, people think that like the Egyptians, the Greeks, you know, that they were all one race, one ethnos. When that's not the case at all. Like all types of people, except from what I could find, Chinese folks.
Yep.
Or,
They're the
or
only
Asian
homogenous culture.
Yes, the only one. And
they're not homogenous completely. No. There's a race of tall, red-headed, green-eyed people that live in Mongolia. And that's what guess who was? Genghis Khan. He didn't look like a Chinese man.
That's what you see it on pictures too. But guess what? What's even more ooky spooky than that? That race of people you're talking about? The red-haired race of people you're talking about? Guess what blood type they predominantly are?
That would be O negative.
That would be. Isn't that crazy? That gave me chills just thinking about it. Like, what the hell's going on with these people? Yeah, as a matter of fact,
and in Japan, they don't like to talk about this at all. There are native inhabitants of the islands of Japan that are tall, red-headed people with green or blue eyes.
You know what's really wild? Is red hair and green eyes, according to science, are mutations. They're mutations. Huh.
You can look at pictures from thousands of years ago that were painted from Persia, what would modern day be called Iran. And they were red-headed people with green and blue eyes.
You still see a little bit of that now with the people that call them, they still refer to themselves as Persians.
Yeah.
They have the more European features with the green eyes or the dark colored blue eyes, and they have like the blonde reddish tint to their hair.
Yeah, people in Iran,
that's the aristocracy.
Thinks that they're Arabs, but they're not. You can go to Iran, and it looks like it does in Los Angeles.
But people don't understand. Like Iran was up until the 60s. I mean, there were women that just like it is here. I think more women were in college.
No,
in Iran
it wasn't
then.
the 60s. It was in the late 70s, late 70s, early 80s.
The Shah of Iran, the Shah of Iran got ran out like 79,
Iran
78,
was
something like that.
The government was overturned.
I believe you're right. 77 at the earliest. But it wasn't
it
that.
Was 79, I think. I think they brought the Shah of Iran back in 80. But there was unrest in 79. They nationalized all the oil.
Yeah.
They started kicking the companies like Shell and Exxon out. And they wasn't going to put up with that.
You're right, though. People do give the entirety of the Middle East this broad brush approach. Like, no, not all of them are. They're not all living in huts and village tribes and whatnot.
I'm going to tell you something.
Especially
you can
Iran.
Look at the people from Saudi Arabia. And if they were to take them turbans off and dress up in normal clothes, you would tell them to their face they're a white man. The word Arab means mixed, literally. Some of them not.
Well, back in the day, like they were mixed between they were just geographically where they're placed. They were mixed with everything.
Yeah.
Isn't it wild, like how if you look at these different ethnicities and or ethnos throughout time, just how like us being, looking at each other in the tribalistic sense of skin tone, melanin in our skin, that's relatively recent. You know what I'm saying? Like the slave class back in a certain era in the Egyptian day, the light skinned, more Caucasian looking folks were slaves, and the darker skinned folks were the slave masters. That's what gets me about American folks, like talk about, oh, well, I want reparations for what my grandparents went through or my ancestors. And you can't name one of them ancestors.
Do you know where the etymology of the word slave is?
It's from the Slavs.
The Slavic Caucasian people.
Yep. See, I know a little bit about a little bit. But it's crazy to me just how somebody can get offended by people they don't even know their name. The only cotton I've ever picked is out of an aspirin bottle, bro. Like you know what I'm saying? I didn't grow up under any kind of like what do they call it? I didn't have to go to colored water fountains and get dogs sicked on me. I'm not going to equate myself to those people. You know what I'm saying? It's disgraceful in my opinion. Yeah. Oh my, the plights of my people, my people. No, if the Irish aren't yelling that, because they ain't treat the Irish good from day one.
No,
I can tell you, living in Philadelphia, they're still treated pretty rough.
Yeah.
I remember going to the Smithsonian, like when I was in the 6th grade. We took like a school trip during the summer there. Your parents had to sign you up and pay for it and everything. And we went all over the place. We got to see Washington's house and all sorts of cool stuff. But I remember going to the Smithsonian, and this one exhibit, like as you were walking through it, it was like you're going through time, and it was the Wild West. They had like a Wild West bar set up, and the sign said no dog, or it said Negroes and dogs welcome, but no Irish. And I was like, gee whiz, that's pretty rough. Like
the Irish and the Chinese.
Yeah,
they were dead set against both of those in the old days.
Chinese got it worse than the Irish, believe it or not. They wouldn't even send in the Canaries.
About 6 of one, half dozen of the other.
It depends, I guess, on what time period, but they wouldn't even send
your geographic location. On the West Coast, the Chinese got it pretty bad, but on the East Coast, it was the Irish.
Yeah, that makes sense, just from where they're coming from too. But they wouldn't send allegedly they wouldn't send canaries in the mines if they had someone who was of Chinese origin.
No, Irish. If they had Irish, they'd send them in the mines to make sure.
Before they would a canary?
The air was good.
No, that's why they sent in them birds.
Money. What are you talking about?
That's crazy, bro.
Yeah. Mark Twain told a story about getting off of a riverboat, and they was taking these bales of cotton out of the middle of the boat, and they was transporting some slaves. They were in the hold, and they got the slaves out of there and sent these Irish guys down there, and one of them bells dropped on one of them and killed him. He said,
Dang.
Why ain't y'all using the slaves? Not Mark Twain, but another guy asked him, said, why aren't you using the slaves to do that instead of free men? They said, them slaves cost money. Irish are free.
Lord mercy.
They don't cost nothing. And there's too damn many of them.
That's why you see so many people of Irish descent. They keep up with their history. There was a lot of participants in the Civil War because they were coming straight off the boat into some Union blues.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a scene on Gangs of New York where it showed that. It was like, welcome to America, sign here, go and fight for your country. That's literally what they were doing. They were shifting them off the boats, and they were getting back on another one to go down south.
They didn't quit during the Civil War when they were sending troops down into Mexico. They used a bunch of the Irish. A bunch of them defected and live down there till this day. That's why they call us gringos. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that, actually.
Yeah, the army coats that they wore green. And my Irish went down there and stayed. They had it better there than they did here in America.
Yeah, like when you're treated as less than a slave. I mean, that's pretty rough.
Yeah.
I forget what the court case was, and I studied it. I feel bad for it, but there was this. it was an older slave who, you know, his master died, and another slave master who was friends of him came and basically kidnapped him. And he took the guy to court. He was like, look, my slave master died. I'm a free man. Like, he, you know, he didn't bequeath me to anyone. And that's what set the precedence for it never happened again, because they said, the court said that we could hear a slave as about as much as we could hear a plow and a horse. So that's pretty rough. But Django Unchained isn't an accurate description of slavery either. You know what I mean? That and Roots, like how they set this, you know, every slave master was killing and rape, which, not to say that didn't happen.
They did a special back when I was a kid, when Roots came out. I was a kid. And they talked to Alex Haley, and they were pretty much all the historians at the time were like, why would you put this out? You know this isn't accurate. And he said, I'm making a modern mythology for my people. Of course it's not that way. That's not the way it was. But that's what my people need to lift their self up now.
No, that's crazy.
Look it up.
No, I believe it, but I'm saying that whole idea of it, like, I wouldn't have even created a mythology. I would have showed them the history of the Moors, showed them Hannibal Barca. You know what I mean? Like, those black guys weren't asking nobody for nothing. Like, the Moors they conquered so much of that southern boot, all the southern boot of Italy, that it's the reason why we have and Spain, yeah, it's the reason why it's the reason why up north in both countries you'll have blonde-haired, blue-eyed Spanish and Italians or the Sicilians. Yep, and down south you have some of them are my complexion,
brown hair
with brown eyes. Yep,
I mean, black hair and brown eyes.
That's exactly right. That's how hard the Moors were going in the paint.
Yeah.
What are you doing, Luna? I guess she wasn't getting enough attention. She comes and walks like right over my pillow and stuff and stares at me. Are you still talking? Man, we got a big crowd that followed in here. I don't even think this one had a name. It's called the offline, because this was the offline thing we were just messing with. But folks, hate to leave good company. Merle, were you gonna say something? I apologize, man.
No. Good.
You sure? Because I did cut you off.
No.
All right. I think we pretty much covered all the questions that were in there. I hope so. Speaking of statues, what happened to the Easter Island ones? A fire melted them. What? Is that? I've never heard that before. How could it melt? They were stone, weren't they?
Yeah, it's volcanic rock. It may look like it had been melted, but I mean, it had been melted, but they carved it out of volcanic rock.
It takes some heavy duty heat to get that back up to where it's going to like fall apart, though, doesn't it?
I don't think that they were vitrified after they were carved. It was
yeah,
that was before they were carved.
Huh.
Now I will say this: in Mohenjo-Daro, there's vitrified stone and stone statues that melted, and rock walls where you can see the rocks vitrified and where it's actually melted and ran down the wall. And there's human bones there that are so radioactive till this day that they won't touch them.
Oh, is that Göbekli Tepe or whatever?
No, Mohenjo-Daro.
Mohenjo-Daro. I always get those two confused.
There's no doubt that there was an atomic war in the past, and that was where one of them.
Yes, that's right. That was the War of the Gods, right? Where they said that they were shooting arrows that would explode. That would explode mountains. Like, and you can see it in their picture art too.
10,000 times the power of the sun.
Yes. There was one where it looked like a rocket.
Also, there's several miles. I mean, that's a tens of miles big sheet of glass in the Sahara where the sand was melted into glass.
Because of one of
There's
these
only
War
one
of
other
the
place
Gods.
on Earth that it is, and it's called it's Trinitite's what it's called. After the Trinity experiment, where the first atomic bomb melted sand and made that kind of glass.
Wow. Bro, Luna, not to go off subject, Luna is trying to cover herself up Like she has her own blanket and she knows it's her blanket. She's over here like making her bed, bro. It's crazy.
I believe it. My dog's.
I have the coolest dog in the world. Like she really looked like she's making a bed. She pulled one in, then like went to the other side and pulled the other one out.
My dogs do that. It's crazy.
Well, I mean, we need to film that and throw it online. That's a $1 million video right there.
Oh, there's your problem. It's all a hoax. You see
First,
that
I heard
last
the
one
Easter
is?
Island statues getting melted was on the Sean Ryan show. Billy Carson was the one who said it. Yeah, that. I've been working on my cousin, so I won't tell you exactly what I think about him. But, bro, Billy Carson.
He claims that he decoded or translated the emerald tablets of Thoth.
Yeah, there's another jabroni that said he did the same
There
thing.
ain't nobody alive ever seen no emerald tablets of Thoth unless they're a Rothschild or something, or in some deep
Yeah, no
underground
kidding.
military base. There's no proof that anybody's ever even found a rubbing of one of those things, much less seen
No
one.
joke. It's all a bunch of rumors and rhetoric. That's what gets me.
It's
And people
just
quote from
straight
it like
BS, most of
Yeah,
it.
people
Like
quote from
old-
it though, like
Like that
it's
old
the
guy
Bible.
that got a hold of you and said, telling you all about them books that's in the bottom of the Vatican, like he's read them or something. When you asked him a question,
Yeah.
he was looking it up on Google.
He was referring to books that he was like, you can read them about, or you can read about them in those books in the Vatican. Like, I didn't know that you were a professor that had what was it, 30 years of tenure at some
Access.
university. Yeah, and you have to have
that
three
has to
professors.
spend the
that-
rest of your life there once you get access.
That's one of the priests.
Yeah.
Like when a priest is 75 years old, they can choose to go down there, but they can't. They have to live in the Vatican forever.
Yeah. And I can tell you right now, those academics that they let go down into the Vatican don't see the books that
You know
those
what they are.
priests see.
Yeah, you know what that, because the academics, they have to. This is what gets me. They have to know what book they want. Now that in and of itself creates a problem. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Do you
I'm
just
sure
have when
they've
you got to
got
guess?
A great card catalog. That
Yeah, that
tells
you can't
all
see.
the titles. Yeah.
Yeah, but if they did have one, good and well, it's probably some nonsense. And we've spoken about it before off air, we got smart people here. That's the Library of Alexandria, obviously, right? Like
The
Has to be.
libraries, plural,
the libraries.
of
You're right.
Alexandria. There
But
was
the one that was burned-
5 or 6 different Alexandrias, and they had universities in every one of
In
them.
Egypt. Yeah, there were 6, I believe. But the main one, the big one that burned down was the one in was it Macedonia or Greece?
I think
Somewhere
it
in
was
Greece.
Macedonia or Greece.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Macedonia.
That library was no more burned than I can flap my arms and fly to the moon.
And if it was, and it was a library is a misnomer. It was a university. It was a place of high learning or whatever. But
Yeah.
what conquering force is going to burn down mountains of information and history? I don't see
can
that
tell you
happening.
right now. There ain't nobody that ever made it to the rank of general burned the Library of Alexandria, because the day he got home, he would be executed.
Yeah, he'd be stoned to death. There'd be no other way
He'd
he'd
be stripped of his rank. His family would be beaten and thrown out into the street, and he would be hung.
Yeah, because that
Might
was the
hang his family
accumulated.
along with him.
They might. That was the accumulated knowledge of the entirety of the modern or
Yeah.
that age's world. Like everyone who was a scholar. Mr. Dark Waters. War drums are beating. The king left his throne. Oh, how I love my king. Amen, amen, and amen. It's good to serve not only the king, but the King of Kings. Good night, big
Lord
bro.
of Lords. Good night, brother.
And thank you for stopping in. Those war drums
Yeah.
have been beaten. We heard
They
them fade in the
sacked.
distance.
What they did was sack the Library of Alexandria. They took all those scrolls and burned the building.
Yep. But all of a sudden, oh, well, they burned everything. They burned it. But how, you got to
Sure
think
they
about
did.
this. How did it get back in the hands of the Romans? Or did it ever leave their hands? Because you got to think it was the accumulated knowledge of the entirety of the world up to that point. You see what I'm saying?
There was one in Egypt. There was one in Rome. There was one in Greece. There was one in I think in Babylon, in Persia.
But the massive one was the one that's either in Greece or Macedonia. Let's look it up. We're on the internet. What am I doing?
There was a university in every one of those cities.
Yep.
Look, Alexander had a policy. Every time that he conquered a nation, every ship that docked there, they would search that ship for books and manuscripts, and they would copy it, pay them for the copy, and give it back.
Yep.
Everything that was in one library in Alexandria or university was in all of them.
That's true. You know, it's crazy when you think about the age that Alexander the Great was in, because Philip of Macedonia, his father, wasn't that far removed, within hundreds of years of Christ, right? I don't want to put you on the spot, but I think that's
not
right.
too far, but
yeah,
I really don't know how close he was. I used to know, but I don't remember.
Yeah, I know what you mean, but I'm pretty. He wasn't a contemporary.
I don't think it was. No, he wasn't a contemporary. I think he was like about 300 or 400 years different, something like that.
Something like that, yeah. But it makes you think, like, Alexander was doing things in these places he conquered that we're doing today, just in our own countries. He built roads, aqueducts. He modernized every place he went to, and
gave them a sort of democratic government.
Yeah, he'd leave one of his generals there, but they would leave the king, unless he gave some sort of resistance.
Satraps. They were called satrapies. But yeah, they elected councils like our Senate and Congress.
But it would all flow through that same royal family. They became the figureheads. He was smart enough to know, like, hey, these people aren't just going to bend the knee to the foreign rulers, but if they see their rulers under our thumb, and they're the ones telling them stuff, then they'll acquiesce.
If they were smart enough to open the gates and let him in, the people that were in charge stayed in charge.
Yep.
It's only the ones that fought him that he killed.
They'd have to, let's see here. The Great Library of Alexandria in Alexandria, Egypt, we're both wrong, was one of the largest and most significant libraries of the ancient world. The library was part of a larger research institution called the Mouseion, Mouseeion, which was dedicated to the Muses. Huh. That makes sense. It all comes back to these muses. I'm thinking the oracles is what I'm thinking of, actually. The 9 goddesses of the arts. The idea of a universal library in Alexandria may have been proposed by Demetrius of Phalerum, an exiled Athenian statesman living in Alexandria, to Ptolemy. Ptolemy? Ptolemy the
Ptolemy.
Are you sure that P was like?
Nope.
My OCD is going to get me now. Pause. Let's see. Ptolemaeus. Oh, that's the Greek word. How do you pronounce it in English? I don't want to. Oh, well, forget Ptolemy. Forget Ptolemy. Ptolemy.
Yep.
Ptolemy the First Soter, who may have established plans for the library, but the library itself was probably not built until the reign of his son, Ptolemy. Why is that word so difficult? Ptolemy.
Some people call it Ptolemy, but the proper way that I was taught is Ptolemy.
Ptolemy. That's how I was. All right. So I'm going to go with the good old-fashioned American English way. Ptolemy II of Philadelphus. So he was the one that built the actual library. The library quickly acquired many papyrus scrolls, owing largely to the Ptolemaic kings' aggressive and well-funded policies for procuring texts. It is unknown precisely how many scrolls were housed at any given time, but estimates range from 40,000 to 400,000 at its height. Alexandria came to be regarded as the capital of knowledge and learning, in part because of the great library. Many important influential scholars worked at the library during the 3rd and 2nd centuries, including Xenodotus of Ephesus. Oh, Ephesus, there you go. Who worked towards standardizing the works of Homer. Callimachus, who wrote the Panakes, sometimes considered the world's first library catalog. Apollonius of Rhodes, who composed the epic poem, the Argonautica. Eratosthenes of Cyrene, or Cyrene, not Cyrene, I think, who calculated the circumference of the earth within a few hundred kilometers of its accuracy. Hero of Alexandria, who invented the first recorded steam engine. Aristophanes of Byzantium, who invented the system of Greek diacritics and was the first to divide poetic texts into lines. And Aristarchus. What a weird. These names have meanings, of course, but I mean, I wonder is that where they got aristocracy from? Anyways, who produced the definitive texts of the Homeric poems, as well as extensive commentaries on them. So suffice it to say, these were pretty smart guys in their time. One invented the first ever recorded steam engine, which is madness. Have you ever seen those robots that they created back in ancient Rome?
Yeah, the word was android. That's where
the
it came
android.
from.
And they would like walk through the streets and stuff, and like they had mechanisms in it that can play music. I just found out that something about that within the past like 7 years. And they rebuilt one and in the same form that it was in back in those days. Bro, it was pretty it was more than what I thought they would do or could do. But it's all, I mean, it's a clockwork type of robot or android as well.
Like I said, though, the policy was that every scroll and manuscript that was at one Alexandria was in all of them.
But this one was huge. The one in Egypt was the huge one.
The campus was bigger. The city was bigger. That don't mean anything.
And I mean, these guys were smart in their day, obviously. So I would think that they would have copies of these scrolls everywhere they could, just in case of fires or something like that.
Like I said, the policy was, I didn't just come up with that. They copied every manuscript that came into the country, especially by ship at every harbor. They searched every ship. And took all the manuscripts that they had, and they even went abroad and bought them and copied them and took them to all of the Alexandrians. Do a spell and light fire.
Do what?
I don't know.
What you? I'm still on the.
Jim Bob says at Merlin 187 needs to do a spell and light fire. Dude looks. I don't know what this.
What? What's going on over here?
Looking at something in the chat. I don't know what it was supposed to be.
No, Jim Bob, it's not. It's. I mean, it's about whatever is clever. Needs to do a spell.
Yeah, I guess it's because of the magician.
Yeah, he said you look cold. It is cold.
Oh yeah, I get it.
I haven't heard that in a while though. I thought this was a cryptid channel. As a new subscriber, we do all kinds of stuff over here, Jim Bob, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it. You're not a one-dimensional man. Do you want to hear? Do you want to hear about the destruction of it, or what they say is the destruction?
Yeah, that's
I don't really want to. I'm done with the Library of Alexandria.
Like I said, I believe that about as much as I believe I can flap my arms and fly to the moon.
That's pretty cool. They built the University of Alexandria. It looks pretty gnarly too. Let's see if I can bring up a picture. Wow.
From what
Has to be
I
an
understand,
architecture.
there was a campus made in all of the Alexandrias, and they were all designed by the same architect.
Whoops. Let's see.
I don't know how true that is, but that's
Probably not very.
one of the histories that I read said it was that way. So
Yeah. Who knows? But doesn't that look cool? And is it
looks
just
a little small to hold as many scrolls as that place was supposedly held.
Well, I think this is just a portion of it, though. And see how it's angled down like an amphitheater?
Yep.
And these are people
But then
sitting at
again, when
tables.
you
I
look
mean, that's
at
pretty
all these
huge, bro.
ancient sites, when you look at all these ancient sites, they don't look as big as you would think.
Yeah. I know the pyramids are huge. But anyways, I'd say we're not going to jump on here and blabber on for 2 hours, and here we are at an hour and 41 minutes. So to keep my word, folks, I sincerely appreciate you guys. We had 30 strong. Listen to us chop it up on nerd stuff. So we sincerely appreciate that. Thank you. We'd be glad if you hit that like button. That'd be beautiful. You guys are doing a whole lot better. And it helps. It helps in the algorithm, it helps the channel to grow. And we are experiencing some growth, and I thank all of you for it. And yeah,
Yes.
What else we got? If I say it publicly, I'm going to feel obliged to do it. So Mr. Merlin 187 and I have a special coming out about very soon. I'm not going to put a date on it, but we have a special coming out about a place called the Church of the Process. And folks, you're going to be, I mean, it's going to be wild when you see how many, the amount of serial killers alone. And that's not talking about these demagogues and these crazy people. Just the amount of serial killers that have been through the Church of the Process is going to make you fall back in your sofa. Now, just off the top of my head,
All the different things.
David
that's been linked
Berkowitz.
to.
Yeah. Berkowitz,
Charlie Manson.
Jim Jones, wasn't he part of that Church of the Process for a minute?
Yeah.
Folks.
They try to.
Yeah, they try to.
Was.
Yeah. And we're going to be using snippets from this documentary, but when we do, I'll leave the thing in its entirety, and I'll suggest you watch it because it's crazy. And it's from the perspective of the people that were in it, and it's like they're going through these fond memories. You know, they remember when. It's like they casually talk about it. It is. They casually talk about killing one of their friends or something. Like they said that he wanted to be stoned to death. But they said, what did the guy say? Oh, we threw him at his feet.
Yeah, he changes it up after it's like he got lost in telling that story with a big old grin. Like, yeah, we stoned this dude. Oh, but we only threw him at his feet.
That's the dude with the long hair, right? Like that guy was loving it. He'd roll his eyes back and they finally remember when. I appreciate it, Jim Bob, and I'm not worried about it, dude. Like, I sincerely do, but you know, what can they do?
Yeah.
I'm flattered. I mean, that they have that much attention on me.
Yeah.
But I'm really honored that you guys would actually want to come in here and listen and give to the conversation. And yeah, it'd be cool if we could all have chop it up with one another. But you guys are always attentive and always adding in very intelligent things to the conversation. I'm appreciative of that. So folks, we thank y'all again, and we'll catch you tomorrow night.
Y'all have a good evening and God bless.
Yeah, y'all have a great night.